I'll give you guys just a quick overview. Again, my wife's here. I'd love to have this be kind of a group discussion. If any of you guys have questions for me or my wife, she's my business partner. I've had other co-founders, but she's been with me through all my companies, and we talk about business nonstop. We talk about human psychology nonstop. There's a couple things that I'd like to share with you more in that regard today. But I wanted to give a quick overview on Entrada. How many of you guys have heard of Entrada or seen our building there? Okay. So we built property management software, and I was graduating from BYU Idaho as my senior project, and I had two friends that were here. We entered the BYU business plan back in 2003, and we won the BYU business plan with that idea. We ended up winning the national business plan with that idea, sponsored by Fortune magazine. They put us on the cover. There was just some awesome things that happened, and the company grew to about 1,500 employees before I left about 3 years ago. I'd been there 12 years. That was all I knew out of school. And we built software for apartment communities to help people rent an apartment online. You could pay your security deposit online. You could view the virtual tour. You could buy renter's insurance. You could get screened to make sure you weren't a criminal living at that apartment. So we walked through the whole process, and we became kind of a one-stop shop for people to move into an apartment. You could then go into the resident portal and pay rent online, and just do everything online. So it was a really natural transition for me to leave and start Homey, although I had a lot of fear. I was pretty uncertain of what I wanted to do after Entrada, but Homey is very similar in that we help people buy and sell homes. We help people move into their apartment home. We just switched to now helping people purchase a home. And the pains that exist in home buying and selling are really the fees. Those are really the biggest problems. Technology has already been around that allows us to do a lot of things on our own, but the fees that exist are really painful. Do any of you guys know how much you typically pay when you sell a home? 6%. So we've tried to educate the market on that, because a lot of times people don't understand, like 6% may sound small, but when you own a home and you've owned it for maybe a year, you've probably gained a little bit of equity. But to turn around and give up 6% back to an agent on a $300,000 home is $18,000. We just did some studies at our company and found that the average home that we're selling here in Utah is $400,000. So initially we thought we'd be selling a bunch of townhomes, condos, but we just sold a $1 million home in 2 days a couple weekends ago. And those guys saved about $60,000 with us. It was incredible. And we don't necessarily take all the credit, because technology like Zillow and Trulia, you put a home for sale on those websites and all the rest of us search them. We search KSL. We do a lot of that work on our own. So our team, what we did was we built out a crew to be able to help you navigate the real estate purchase contract, all of the paperwork, and the negotiations. So we have a team of attorneys and realtors at our office that help you through that for a low fee, for about $1,500 to sell a home. We've been able to do that consistently. What we've also found is that we're selling homes 4 days faster than the traditional agent. And we feel that's game-changing. We're about to publish some information on that, but it takes about 16 days on average here in Utah to sell a home with Homey. It's about 20 days on average with an agent. Any home that's $350,000 or less pretty much goes in hours. It goes in about a day. So homes are just selling super fast on the lower price point where the majority of us can afford homes. But anyhow, things are going extremely well there. We've been raising money. We're a VC-backed business. Unlike my previous company, we bootstrapped it completely. But this business, we actually just received funding from Cougar Capital. They just put in a little money to help us continue to market and grow outside of the state of Utah. So we're currently here in Utah. We're also in the state of Arizona. So quick little overview there. I'll get into a little bit more of that later on and answer any questions that you guys may have. The blog that was shared that my wife created is our family startup. We have a passion for family history of where you started up, where you began. And we're putting a little bit of a unique spin on it, also trying to find out where our ancestors had startups, and what we can learn from them, and the confidence that we can gain and learn from knowing the people that have come before us. So quick overview of us and our family. But the message that I wanted to share with you guys today was our potential. I know the human spirit is limitless. We are capable of doing so much. But I wanted to kind of throw this at you guys and ask for your definition, kind of what you guys think it means to be limitless in any regard. Any thoughts there? What is limitless, the definition of limitless? Yeah, in the back.
I say despite any success, like not stopping the improvement or the innovation or the search for something better. Just understanding that whatever success we've had can still be improved and we can still learn more from later trials and later risks.
I think that's a great definition. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
I think it's without bounds or, infinite possibilities.
Without bounds, infinite possibilities. I think that summarizes it well also. Any other comments? Anyone want to add? I do think that the first comment, he shared a couple, he used the word success a couple different times, and I think depending on what our definition of success is, can fall into being limitless. But does it mean a limitless amount of money? I guess would that be an answer? Would that be a definition for you? That if you had an unlimited amount of money, would you be limitless? That's kind of what I wanted to talk a little bit about today. Like where our potential lies and how to achieve what success is. And I do think that definition of constantly trying to make improvements and get better is a great definition of success and limitless, without bounds, without limits. So thank you both for sharing that. Another thought that I had, and this to me, I'm sharing this because this is what I struggle with daily. I feel like anybody who's an entrepreneur, anybody in business, and in life in general, I think we all struggle with this. So I'll bring it back to entrepreneurship and business here in a second. But I guess in terms of being limitless, where are we limited and how are we limited? What are your thoughts there? How do we limit ourselves? If we know that we are limitless, how do we limit ourselves? Yeah.
Fear.
I think that is one of the biggest ways we limit ourselves. Fear. What are some examples of fear? And then let's expand a little bit on this. What are some examples of fear that limit us? Yeah.
I would just say fear of failing.
Fear of failing. Fear of not having success. Whatever in our mind that definition is. Fear of failing. Great. And yeah.
I think fear of succeeding too, because if your business fails, what do you do? If your business succeeds, what's going to happen? I think it's a little bit scary either way, and you have to be prepared for the unknown.
I think that's a great point. Fear in either direction, failure or success. Any other thoughts of what limits us? Yeah.
I think and it kind of goes on that fear. It's just like especially as entrepreneurs, we want to control everything, and so we don't delegate things as much as we can. I think one thing that's limited is our time.
Is our what?
Is our time.
Is our time. So our time limits us, but also fear of giving up control. I think that's a great point. To me, we want to control everything, but the truth is that we're not in control. The truth is we could get in a car wreck tomorrow. The truth is our business could fail even though it's a great idea. There's so much truth to trying to control, and trying to control can limit us. Not delegating is what you said. I think that is brilliant. And I think that so many people, when you start a business, you're in fear, so you control and you don't delegate. I think that's great. Thank you. Any other thoughts on what limits us?
I think sometimes our vision limits us, and it might be related to fear, it might be connected to that, but sometimes we aim too low. We could shoot so much higher, but we just don't. We settle.
Yeah. To me, I got to remind myself that we're limitless. We, especially in an LDS environment, what is our potential? Is our potential to become God-like, to inherit all that He hath? I mean, that's quite a great potential, and we have to remind ourselves. So I agree, just our vision. Sometimes our vision is limiting because we forget, or maybe we don't have faith. we don't see clearly. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of these questions or these answers have been focusing on ourselves personally, but I also think that family members, friends can even limit us. A lot of our potential just staying in crowds that we shouldn't be in the first place and
Yep.
things like that. So I think our surroundings also limit us.
I completely agree. And I feel like in this college environment, when I was in school, I had a couple friends that had an idea for a company called Entrada. Wasn't my idea, but I surrounded myself with people who had vision, who wanted to partner and delegate and do that kind of thing. So I agree. Who we surround ourselves with, whether it's family or friends, they can limit us. And so at times we might need to cut ties in order to get rid of those boundaries, those roadblocks. If someone had a comment, yeah.
Sometimes I feel like we limit the amount of effort we give to something because we're unsure about it, whereas if we would have committed everything to it, it would have worked spectacularly. Hesitation in decisions. Yeah, if you don't go forward and commit on an idea or a decision that you feel good about, you'll create limitations. Great, thank you. Yeah.
I agree. Building off that one, just being content, happy with where we are. Just like, that'll just stifle your effort right there to your progress.
Being content. And my wife and I were just talking about this one on the way over. So I was president, co-founder of Entrada. We had 1,500 employees. I was worshipped. Like it was pretty awesome. That was pretty cool. But I felt the need to leave and start over. Zero income, and I had to leave equity leaving the company as well, but I knew I needed to do it. But being content, that could have been limiting. And the challenges that I faced have been beyond anything I experienced prior. And yeah, being content, that's one we chatted about. Any other thoughts? So all of this is great feedback, and I think this is stuff we need to keep. We have to just constantly remind ourselves and tell ourselves this, but one thing that we do as humans is when we see or think, and as thoughts come into our mind, we distort those thoughts. We distort them and we leave truth, and we go into comparison. And this is what I wanted to chat about a little bit. So this comparison is what limits us. And all these things that we shared are included in comparison. So as we go through life, we ping pong really back and forth between these things, but we're less than. We have fear that we're not going to succeed. And this is called self-denigration. At times we think we're better than, and that's self-adulation. Does anybody have any examples of how being less than limits us? Any thoughts on that? On how that might hold you back? We've touched on a few of them, but I'd like to elaborate a little further. How do we limit ourselves by thinking we're less than?
I think that's kind of just like mental boundaries that we set in our own heads. Like, I don't have the skills to do that. I can't do that.
That, yeah, I'm not capable. I don't have the skills to do that. I'm not smart enough. So there's a very prominent venture capitalist here in the area. I haven't gotten his permission to share his story, so I won't share his name, but he had a stroke recently and went into Great Depression. And I didn't even realize this. I was with him a couple weeks ago, but he told me about this. And I was shocked. And depression, I think, kind of falls into this camp of self-denigration that he's, he was depressed. He couldn't get out of it. And he talked about this prison that we lock ourselves into inside of our head. And I think we all do this. We're at BYU. We need to get good grades. And, I don't know if I'm capable. I don't know if I'm smart enough, good enough, etc. But this is something that happens to all of us in business constantly. Any other thoughts on being less than and how that limits? Someone else had a comment here. Yeah.
Maybe thinking you don't have enough money.
Yeah. Maybe thinking you don't have enough money. That's definitely one. I'm not wealthy enough, I can't do that. Or, there's a bunch of examples. I don't know, you care to elaborate on that? Any other thoughts that you were thinking?
I guess kind of closing yourself off to say, I don't need a venture capitalist help. I need to save money on my own because, pride. And thinking, this guy he grew up in a wealthy family. Of course he's going to open a business at 14
Great.
That you just don't have that opportunity like others do.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Great, and yeah.
You might just say to yourself like, oh, I'm not as good as, my idea isn't as good as his idea, my business isn't as good as his business. Not as good as, that's limiting yourself.
Yeah, I think of Property Solutions. We won the BYU business plan. We won the national competition. I think we were more over here on the self-adulating. We were like, awesome, we're amazing. Then we got into the real world, and we realized there were two $500 million revenue companies that were doing the exact same thing. And so I know where I fell with that. Like, I don't know if our idea is good enough. Like, we won a few business plan competitions on how we wrote the story, but can we really do this? Are we really capable of competing in that type of an environment? And that can be that can be polarizing, where you just don't move forward. I think that was the comment you shared. You're hesitant, and so you just shrink back, and you might try to distract yourself, watch movies or try to do other work that is valuable, but it isn't priority. There's a lot of things that our mind, that prison that we put ourselves in, can keep us there. Any other thoughts? Yeah, in the back.
I was going to say, when you have that too, you don't ask as many questions because you're unsure of yourself, so you assume that everybody else knows what's going on. You don't ask the questions that might help you understand and might help the company.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that you're hesitant to ask questions. You don't want to look dumb. You doubt yourself, and you have questions where you want to learn, but you're hesitant to grow because of feeling that you're less than. These are all self-denigrating thoughts. And again, this is just a constant battle. It never changes. Okay, so if there's any other thoughts, we can come back to this in a little bit. But self-adulating. How are we limited by self-adulating? I don't know. I mean, just thinking of a couple ideas, I think of some of the CEOs in the world today. They're self-adulators, so they're doing great. How are they limited? Where they're so, into themselves. Yeah.
You lose that hunger.
You can lose the hunger. Yeah, I've achieved greatness. I no longer need to keep growing. That's a great point. Yeah.
Like blind spots, make you stop listening to other people and see what's actually going on, and being humble enough to accept better opinions.
I've seen that so much. Stop listening to people because you think you're the best. And there's, if you win some business plans and have a company and it grows to 10 million in revenue, you might think, man, I'm awesome. And you stop listening, and then all of a sudden your revenue stops growing. You stop growing as a person. I think that's huge. There's a lot of truth in that. Any other thoughts on self-adulating? Yeah.
So I think a lot about the pride cycle, that we all know about and read about in the scriptures, and how when you start, taking part in self-adulation, you turn to things that are more temporal and worldly, and you kind of get out of balance. And things that are maybe of eternal importance, of greater importance, you start to lose sight of those things that will bring you success.
I think amongst this crew, that's a wonderful answer. And our limitless potential isn't just earthly. It's beyond. And so being over here saying I've made it in an earthly view, you might limit yourself eternally. I think that's very well said. Thank you. Any other thoughts? The one thing that I want to come back to is the pride. Both sides are prideful. If we are truly limitless, and we know that, and that is truth, which I believe 100% that each one of us are all equal. We all have different talents. We've all been blessed with different gifts. But we are limitless. We know, scriptures tell us where our destiny is. So if that's the truth, it's prideful to not use those God-given talents. It's prideful to sit back and not do anything with what you've been blessed with. I think it's easy to point fingers that this is the prideful side, but it actually occurs on both, if that makes sense. Any other thoughts? Do you have anything to add? No? Okay. So part of the reason I'm sharing this with you again is this is where I live. I ping pong back and forth, but where's the better side to be? Is there a better side to be? Less than or better than? Is there a best place to end up? Again, I think the media and in the world, I think what we see is a lot of the prominent leaders fall into self-adulating, and so it's like, I'd rather be there, I'd at least have money. If if they're both prideful. Any thoughts on that? So, where we need to be, where we need to constantly try to put our focus is to be enough, to be right in the center. And there's some really cool thoughts around this, but each one of you are enough. Each one of you are capable of building businesses. Each one of you are capable of succeeding with the talents you've been given. Each one of you are capable of overcoming the weaknesses you've been given to make those into strengths. So we're all enough. And this is, again, that prison inside of our head. We bounce back and forth. We wake up and we're just depressed, or we wake up and we think, I can't do it. I'm not capable. But you've got to remind yourself who you are and what your eternal destiny is, where we're limitless, and come back to truth that I'm enough. I'm capable. I think of my childhood. I grew up in Pueblo, Colorado, very poor area of Colorado. I was on reduced lunch, so I brought a quarter to pay for my lunch every day, and I was the rich kid because I had a quarter to bring to lunch and be on reduced. They were like, man, you're rich, you're on reduced? I'm on free. I came from a pretty humble beginning, and, I had my mom to thank for her getting us into a situation where where she showed herself that she was capable. She ended up, at a young age, being divorced. She ended up going back to school with 2 kids at home. So she was working full-time as a secretary and then went to school. She got her degree. She made something of herself. She continued to climb the ladder in business. And she continued to see that she was enough. And that was a great example to me growing up. And it gave me the thought, hey, I think I can start a company. Not in the self-adulating manner, but I think I'm capable. I think I'm enough. I think I've been given talents, and I'm going to move forward and just do it. I'm not going to hesitate. Those thoughts have continued to, I've had to keep trying to pull on both directions and try to stay right in the middle. And thinking of Homey, nobody in the 20-year history of the internet has ever automated the realtor. Nobody's ever gotten rid of those fees. Our goal is beyond that. Our goal is to automate the whole process. We've become a mortgage company, is what was mentioned. We also have Homey Loans. We're eliminating loan officer commissions. We want to automate it all the way through title and escrow, so you're not hopping around from company to company. That is, we're swinging for the fences. This could be one of the biggest businesses ever. And am I cocky enough to think that I can do that? The truth is that I think I'm enough. I think that I'm capable. But coming back to listening to other people, what I've also found to be very helpful is to try to find people that are right here, that are centered. So my interview process focuses around this. In the interview process, I look at this less than, better than, and as I'm interviewing people, as I talk, or as I listen, I might share, a few things about our company and ask, do you have any other questions? And if they ask the same question of something that I just shared, I can tell they're not listening. And if somebody's not listening, they fall into this camp. They're better than. They're not giving you their attention. There's another example. I had another individual that let me know, his opinion of CEOs, that it's lonely at the top. That's another phrase that's shared commonly amongst CEOs. Oh, it's lonely at the top. I don't know of a more self-adulating phrase that I can think of. But I know that my executive team is incredibly talented. And I'm not lonely at all. If anything, I'm lucky to have these guys. So hearing some of these, these, and interpreting the words that people use in interviews, like this is important to know I want people that aren't going to hesitate. I want people that know that they're enough. I want people that I can trust, that will ask questions of me if they are stuck in a problem, or ask questions of a team. I want people that are humble enough to ask questions. I want people that are humble enough to just move the ball forward and try their best. And again, this is where we fall. We bounce back and forth on this scale just nonstop. So our true limitless potential is just right here, dead center. Any other thoughts? This last weekend, I also found it pretty interesting. My old school president was President Bednar, Elder Bednar. He spoke a couple days ago. He talked about meekness. And to me, right here, this is meekness. This is humility. Humility is not arrogant. Humility is confident. You can have confidence. You can have confidence being meek. He gave a couple examples. And one of the examples is he said that President Monson gave the challenge to read the Book of Mormon. And he used the example of President Eyring and President Nelson taking that challenge seriously. Two prominent leaders who are, they're wizards in the scriptures. They know them in and out. But they took that challenge seriously to up their game. And this is the quote that he shared. He said that these two demonstrated in their response no hesitation or sense of self-importance. No hesitation of self-importance. Those two gentlemen were centered. And this, to me, is you're helping you to be limitless in whatever avenue you go into in business or in starting a company.